Before we get into a time of worship, I think it's a privilege that we all have a time and a place to come together as a family, as God's people, to meditate on His Word and to worship Him. And you look at news around the world, and there's very little. I mean, it's so volatile that you don't know when your life's going to end. And we all have this privilege, so I think we should all take this privilege to worship the Lord this morning. I'd want to start with this question of what is worship? How do we explain worship? Why do we even worship the Lord? Now, worship is a way of how we show our love, our honor, and more than anything, how we respond to God for all that He has done to us and what all that He has done to us, has been with us, and it's just a way of how we orally reach out. It's an attitude of our heart and the focus of our lives and the submission of our will to God. And that is what is worship. And the privilege that we have as Christians is we can go to God at any time, at any place, and you can reach out to Him in any situation. It doesn't have to be a Sunday, it doesn't have to be a church building, it doesn't have to be a specific time, and there's no sequence for how it should be done. But all that said, oral worship is the last thing. True worship is a daily lifestyle of what you live with God, the kind of obedience that you show towards God. It could be joyful time, it could be a difficult time, it could be ordinary times. The kind of worship that you show in your daily life, in your everyday life, is worship. We come here and we orally worship. That is just a small expression of what we know of God. This morning, as we spend this time in worship, I want you to turn with me to Daniel chapter 2, verses 20 to 22. Daniel chapter 2, verses 20 to 22. I will read that out. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are His, and He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with Him." I think all of you know the context of when Daniel worshiped or made this worship to the Lord. All of us, a lot of us are on the corporate side of things. We all have jobs, we all have deadlines, we all have work. And there are different situations, and there is this situation, a crisis in Daniel's life. He's been brought from Jordan to um, this country, and then he's trained for a certain purpose to be a noble man. And then suddenly there is this crisis. We all know what this crisis is. It's kind of life-threatening. The king has a dream. The king doesn't remember the dream, but the king wants to know what that dream meant. It's a very weird kind of situation. At least when we do our jobs, we know the kind of situation that we are in. We are supposed to deliver something. We know at least the history of things and what we should be doing. And Daniel is in a situation where he doesn't know what the king dreamt, but he is supposed to tell the meaning of that dream. The king doesn't remember the dream. And then because of that, people are getting killed. I mean, if you don't tell what the dream is and what the dream meant, you're killed. And that's the situation that Daniel is in. Pretty critical. And Daniel's life hangs in a balance, and yet his response is not panic. You see and read through. He did not just panic about the situation. The first thing that he went to and did was pray to the Lord. And his response becomes a declaration of worship and trust in God's character. It doesn't automatically come. Only if you know the Lord intimately and personally does worship come out. Even if you come here and utter big words, I think it's useless unless you have a real relationship and you have the experience with the Lord of what He's doing. And how many times have we found ourselves in a situation like these? We might not be in critical situations like how Daniel is probably in life and death situations, maybe that also. But a lot of times we have we don't have answers for all situations. We don't have answers in situations where suddenly life throws a curveball at us. And we live in situations where there's a lot of high pressure jobs, or maybe it could be deadlines that we need to deliver, or sometimes you go for a medical report and the diagnosis is uncertain, or the future seems like a very sealed kind of a mystery. You don't know what is inside, what's coming at us. And Daniel's moment is not very unfamiliar to all of us. We have been in situations where we are not sure about what is going to happen next. And it also echoes our own seasons of fear, our own seasons of doubt, our own seasons of confusion, and not able to make decisions. And this is how Daniel responded. And he responded that way because he knew that his God was mighty and powerful. He was in control of every situation. Let's go. Verse 20. He says, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his." He even talks about it. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. A lot of times when we are at a loss of words, a lot of loss of thought, of what, and we are at a loss of the sense of life itself, what is going to happen next? How should we answer this situation? And we are completely confused. How do we go about this? Maybe you don't have finances, maybe you don't have health, maybe you don't have a job, maybe different situations. We're confused what kind of decisions to make. But the biggest refuge for us is God is never confused. God is absolutely clear of every situation. And that is what Daniel believed. And that is what Daniel experienced in his life. And that is the only reason why he is worshiping God this way this morning. Saying, God is never confused. And he's saying wisdom and power are in his hands, which basically means God is still in control of every situation. He has the power not just for you to overcome, but he has the power to bring it to pass as well. And that is what Daniel is going to say here. In my own life, and I'm sure in all of your lives, we have come to different crossroads in life where we had to take decisions. It could be some complex decisions that you had to make, where you felt things are out of your control, where things are really not something that you can think about with your intellect and kind of get a solution. But in all of those situations, you feel and you know that God is in control. Only if you're a Christian, you can say that. And only if you have experienced that, you can say that. That God has a specific time of how things should happen, a specific sequence of how they should happen. And then you understand that God's wisdom is beyond our comprehension. And His control is beyond our thinking. We cannot fathom why He orchestrated things that way. And that's why Daniel here worships the Lord because of His wisdom and His power, because He's a God who is in control. Now, this answer is being given to a king, Nebuchadnezzar, who is very powerful, who has a lot of kingdoms under him. And then he's making this statement in verse 21. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. I mean, if, let's say, we had to go to a CM and had to make these statements, God is the one who takes off CMs and he'll put CMs in position. It feels pretty, I mean, you know the king is going to get angry with such statements, right? And then Daniel still had the courage to make that statement because he knew whatever situation, God is the one who appointed him. God is the one who has the power to replace him as well. And he is not talking from a time and a place of comfort, but he's talking from a place where his life could end that very moment. Seasons change even if we are ready or not. And Daniel recognized that God is the author of time itself. He raises kings and removes them. He has the power to do that. He brings us into new places. He brings us into new challenges, new chapters. And these are not accidents. God orchestrates them by design. In your life also, you might face different situations. It could be a situation where you've lost a job, or maybe it could be a situation where you're going through grief, or maybe it's a transition from a different place that you thought that will be your own. And it feels very uncertain when you're taking these steps. Just like Daniel, who was taken from Judah to Babylon. Your seasons are not out of control of God. He knows the purpose behind the shift. He knows the purpose why He's leading you into that. And that is why we take a lot of courage, because He is a God who knows the times, who's in control of seasons, and He's in control of change. The third that I'd want to also mention, and because I am from a IT kind of background, and there are a lot of deadlines, and I'm going kind of doing a project where there's a lot of stress. We really don't know how it's going to turn out, and then there is a lot of pressure all the way from the CEO. And I was meditating, and then he's the one who reveals deep and hidden things. Sometimes you don't know whether what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. For us, things might look really bleak. We don't know the situation. You might feel everything is dark. You don't know the step that you're taking. But what a comfort to know that God illuminates the dark. In the last verse that we read, light dwells with Him, or in fact, He is the light. There's no situation of darkness with God. For us, it is. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or not even when we are leaving this premises. But God has an entire vision and a clear understanding. And He is light, so He knows everything. There's nothing hidden. He's not a God who's surprised, who's not a God who's suddenly come to know of these things and kind of surprised to say what to do. He's a God who knows everything. We might be in a situation of darkness, but God is not. And if that is the kind of situation that you're in, our God is light. He dwells in light, and He is the light Himself. And in time, He reveals what we need to know, just like how Daniel knew from this situation that the king did not know, the rest of the kingdom did not know, but God revealed to him. So, three things I want you to remember this morning. The first is God is in control. He is absolutely powerful, absolutely mighty. And that's why we worship Him. The second is God is in charge of times and seasons. He's the one who puts kings and who has the power to remove them. And so He has control. He has absolute sovereignty over every situation. And third thing I want you all to worship or keep that thought is He's a God who illuminates the dark, whatever situation. We might all have a very big smile here. We might think nobody knows what my situation is, but deep inside you might be going through difficult times. Times of darkness where you think you might not even overcome those, but God is there even in those situations. And that's why we take courage. And this morning, I want you to make this particular portion your own, that He's a God who's in control, who's absolutely mighty, who's sovereign over everything, who has control over all seasons, who has control over all times, wise in every decision, sovereign in every season, and even present in every situation, even like a shadow. And He's the one who will take us through and who will see us through different situations as well. So let's, just like Daniel, say, praise be to the name of our God forever and ever, because He's mighty and powerful. So take this time. Let's praise God for who He is. And like I mentioned, It's not just orally worshiping. Only if you have lived that life through the week, the words of worship will just be an outlet for you. That's how worship is supposed to be. It's not songs, it's not just giving some regular words. That's not how worship is supposed to be. Worship is just what you've lived out and what you've experienced of God and what you can just say a few words and thank God for who He is. Let's take this time. Close your eyes. Don't sing any songs.